Prepper Nation, how y'all doing? John here. Are we actually in the opening stages of the Second Revolutionary War? We're going to get into that this morning. Before we do, I need to handle the same business I always handle, and that's thanking the people that make it happen. I want to welcome to Patreon, Matt, Tina, Selena, Elizabeth, Corey, and Deidre. Welcome to the madness. I actually have a post getting ready to hit Patreon shortly. If you guys out there are brand new and you're interested in buying my coffee in the mornings or joining Patreon for $1 a month, you can do it. The links are below. Okay, so anyway, let's get down to business. Are we actually in the opening stages of the Second Revolutionary War? Now, a lot of prepping channels, myself included, okay guys, have been talking about Civil War II, Civil War 2.0. And not to toot my own horn, but I was really one of the first to mention this in the prepping community here on YouTube, and now everybody's picked up on it. So I'm going to break off a little bit, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm changing direction here just a little bit. I believe we're in a second revolutionary war. Man, the birds are alive this morning. You guys hear that? And I'm going to make a case for it, folks. And you're hearing it here first. While everybody else is still talking about the Civil War, I want to make the case for the Revolutionary War. So here we go. Let's take a look at what caused the first Revolutionary War and then compare it to what's going on here in the United States right now. Greater tax. All right, so back in the day, the British were taxing the colonies to pay off debts, war debts, basically. They had amassed a huge amount of debt from wars, especially with the French. What's the United States problem right now? Debt, right? National debt. Money mismanagement and endless wars. How's that going to be paid for? In theory, it's going to be paid for by taxing the middle class, the working American. All right? Greater control. The British wanted greater control over the lives of colonists. What's going on here in the United States right now? Right? They're coming after certain amendments. They're trying to make government more centralized. They're trying to, bigger government means less rights, okay? Successful riots. And what I mean by that is riots that were unchecked back in the day. The Stamp Act, things of that nature. So you had colonists going against the system, going against the Redcoats, the British, and the British really didn't put the brakes on it when it first started. They let it get out of control. Now fast forward to the year 2020, folks, and we have rioting going on all throughout the country. It should have been stopped right out of the gates. It wasn't. It was allowed to continue and to grow, and now there's this groundswell of just revolt against the system in much the same way. All right, boycotts. Now, of course, back then it was boycotts against British goods because the British were the primary enemy, I guess you would say, of the people. However, we live in a culture now where boycotts are the norm. Somebody makes you mad, you boycott the store. Isn't that how we're doing it? A lot of us don't wear Nike anymore. I actually have a pair of Nikes on right now. I'm not a fan of the Nike company, folks. But these are 2 years old, and I picked these up. These were $300, and I got them on clearance for $50 because I wear size 14 shoes. So they were on clearance. I picked them up, and I ain't throwing away shoes that cost that much. I'll just wear them until they're completely out, and then I'll buy some Under Armour. But I'm with the boycotts because I do think that that's where the power lies in capitalism. So the same thing going on there, basically. The Quartering Act, and this is very important. Back in the day, the British passed the Quartering Act, which basically gave their soldiers the right to come in, take a colonist's food, supplies, or even take up residence in the house of the colonist. Fast forward to 2020. Under certain conditions, the Army here and also the United Nations, they have this same power. I don't know if you folks are aware of that or not, but they can come into your house, they can take your things under, again, certain circumstances. Certain pieces of paper have to be signed. Declarations have to be made. But yeah, they can come take your stuff at any point in time once that happens. They can take quarter in your house. So we have the same issues that we had back then. Think about this for a second. All right? You'll hear all the time, we left Britain as colonists. Well, we didn't. You know what I'm saying? Our ancestors. Let's get that straight. Because of the ridiculous tax. That was the answer for everything. Now, if I go out in 2020 and I buy a new car, which again, this is fiction because I write for a living, folks. I'm not buying a brand new car. I can promise you. But if I were to go out and spend $30,000 on a brand new, let's say a sedan, okay? At the point of sale, I'm paying taxes, which I don't have a problem with, right? Taxes make it possible for us to be a society. Have no problem with that. However, when I file my taxes at the end of the year, I'm basically going to be penalized for having bought a brand new vehicle. I'm going to be taxed again for this, for having a new vehicle. And then on top of this, here locally, for example, I'm going to have to register the vehicle and get plates for the vehicle. Every year I have to pay and renew the plates, the license plates. And all they do is toggle a button on the computer and charge, what is it, 40, 50, 60 bucks, whatever. It's a tax. It's a clever way to tax you. Then on top of this, depending on where you are locally here in the United States, some places have to have a town, city, or county sticker, a tax. It's another clever way to tax you. And then on top of this, many states, what is that called over there? It's like a safety inspection or something that some states have to have on their vehicles to make them legal to drive. It's another tax, folks. That's all it is. And so you're being taxed multiple times for the same item. This is the same thing we went through, our ancestors went through as colonists with Britain. Think about that for a second. It works for land. If you buy land every single year, you're going to be taxed for that land, even though you've already paid the tax. Taxation without representation. So let's get to the representation part. And this drives me nuts on social media, on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, by the way, at @1 Prepper Nation. This drives me insane. When people over there make the argument, we need a popular vote election, we need to abolish the Electoral College. So crash course here in 2 minutes or less. This is why the Electoral College exists, folks. If we went by popular vote, a presidential candidate could theoretically, they could win Phoenix, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, and that's the ball game. They take those 4 cities and they then have enough votes to win the election. Well, what this means is when it comes time for re-election, they're not going to travel across the United States and talk to everyone, right? When it comes time to re-election to come around, they're going to go to these 4 cities only. They're going to pander only to the citizens of these 4 cities. And when they get bills passed, you know, Congress and Senate, they send bills up to the president. The president is only going to really do what the president has to do in order to satisfy the citizens of those 4 cities. So they're going to pander and place all of their attention on these 4 cities. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is forgotten. Yeah, the rest of the country at this point has 0 representation, which is exactly what it was going on in the colonies, okay? So this is very important. We need the Electoral College. That way everybody's voice matters, right? And you'll hear a bunch of the counter argument for this on social media is, well, just move to one of the 4 cities. Well, you folks would love that. Unfortunately, not everybody wants to live in a concrete jungle. You know what I'm saying? To each their own. If you like the city life, it's all you. Me, I like songbirds in the morning. I like trees hanging down at my face as I'm doing these videos. It's just more peaceful to me, right? But I should have the same voice as someone who lives in Los Angeles. I pay the same amount of taxes, right? So my voice should matter just as much as everybody else's. And you'll hear people say, well, that's flyover country. You know what I'm saying? North Carolina and Georgia and all them southern boys and girls. No, we also pay taxes, right? We're also part of the union, but we're kind of cast off. This also happens in the Midwest. They're cast off, like casts off, of second-class citizens, right? So whether you're on the left or the right, as long as you're a red-blooded American and you're paying your taxes, right, you should matter. It doesn't matter if you live in a flyover state. You're still an American. You should not be treated like you're second class just because you choose to live there. And that's why the Electoral College exists. Now, the trend seems to be pushing to abolish the Electoral College. And again, treating 2/3 of the country like we are second-class citizens. Well, that's a problem, historically speaking. Now, let me cover a few more things and then I'll cut the video here. Mask mandates. Think about that for a second. They're now telling us it may be years before the mask mandates are done. There are a couple of problems here. Number one, the mask mandates aren't even legal. Just because a governor rushes around and signs a piece of paper real quick, there's no process. There's a process that needs to be followed in order for laws to pass, even in emergency situations, right? Governors are just signing things into existence. And so you're not being represented at that point. So that's a problem. And number two, this is supposed to be a free country. At what point do we draw the line and say, no, I'm not going to get a ticket for walking downtown by myself without a mask on? You understand what I'm saying? That's not freedom at all. Lockdowns. Let's talk about lockdowns. How do lockdowns factor into us being a free country? They don't. And again, these are things that governors have just signed. Silly pieces of paper that most people go along with, right? We call them sheeple here in the prepping community. They just go along with them. The governor of whatever state, they have Capitol Police, a couple of dozen officers. They can't force the entire state to do what they write down on a piece of paper, right? They are banking on the fact that you're not going to revolt against anything they sign. And guess what, folks? People in power want to stay in power. They're just going to continue to sign things as long as you get in line and do what you're supposed to do. So that's a problem. But it leads us to a very important question. Here in the United States, who actually has the power? Who has the power? Is it the bureaucrats and the elites, right? Is it the people that own the billion-dollar corporations and the governors and the senators, Or is it actually the people like it's supposed to be? Think about that for a second. Why are we listening to what a governor tells us we need to do, which again is illegal, when that governor is supposed to work for us and represent us? If a majority of the people in the state don't want a mask, guess what, Chief? You're supposed to represent that voice, not tell us you have to do this or else. And that's the problem. That's why I think we're headed for, if we're not already in, a revolutionary war. There was a communist revolution in this country. Let's call it for what it is, and then I'll close the video out. Let's call it for what it is. That's exactly what Antifa is, folks. These are communists. They're trying to upset the structure here in the United States. They're trying to upend the country and totally transform it. But that's backfired, okay? Instead, what it's doing, and this is my personal opinion, but what I think it's doing is it is galvanizing the true patriots in this country. The patriots who are sick and tired of it, and we've just had enough. We've had enough of the ridiculous tax upon tax upon tax upon tax for the same item. We've had enough of being told you have to wear a mask when you go out in public, or else we're going to put you in the corner and put your nose in the corner for 30 minutes or whatever's going on. People are sick and tired of it. And people weren't doing anything about it. Patriots weren't really saying that much about it. But when Antifa started doing their little rioting, their little song and dance, you know, the Kool-Aid haired Starbucks crowd, when they started doing all this stuff and there were no consequences, now the patriots are awake. They're like, oh, wait a minute now. If these idiots are out here doing this, causing all this chaos, and they're not really getting in trouble, why can't we? Now, I'm not advocating you go out and commit any kind of violence or any kind of damage whatsoever. Stay within the means of the law. But I think we're starting to see it now. Did you guys see the other day the protests inside the Target store? I'll try and find it and link it down below. People just went into a Target en masse, peacefully, I might add, without masks. And they were just yelling that they were free and that they were not going to wear a mask. What is Target going to do about this? Nothing. They can't. They have no real power. The power is always with the people, always. There are too many people here to be controlled. You understand what I'm saying? The tighter you, what is that old Star Wars line or whatever, the tighter you close your grip, the more slips through your fingers, right? They cannot control us all. And patriots have figured this out, because for every 5 Antifa buffoons out here, there are 95 to 100 patriots. And most of us are fed up. So anyway, I do think that war is coming. But I don't know that it's a civil war. I'm on the fence with that one. I think that we may be actually now in the opening stages of a revolutionary war here in the United States. And the end result is going to be the erasure of all the nonsense. I think we're going to be done with the nonsense when this is all said and done. Anyway, this is best-selling author John M. Davis. If you would like to buy me a coffee, if you got a couple of bucks laying under the couch or whatever, the link is down below in the video. If you'd like to join Patreon for $1 a month and support this channel, it's very simple to do. The link is down below. And folks, if you're catching this in audio-only format, please get your butt over to YouTube and hit like and subscribe so this channel, this nation of ours, can continue to grow. All right, have an incredible rest of the day, and God bless.